Hey y'all, my name is Mark Lindsay from Lindsay CNC. I'm just a guy in a shed with a few benchtop power tools, a home-built Gatton CNC router, having fun and living the dream. How do I define myself? Well, primarily I define myself as husband, father of 5, grandfather of 5. But I guess in the context of making things, I define myself primarily as a woodworker. I've been a wood guy, a wood nerd for 50 years easily, and come up through the construction trades into cabinet making and furniture making, and I've been doing it for so long I don't really remember a time that I wasn't working with wood. I've dabbled in other mediums. I've worked with plastics and foams, and I had a short career as an upholsterer, but primarily it's been working with wood. The last project I made, well, other than doing a lot of work around the house and landscaping, the last project I made was a pair of V-carved portraits on my Gatton CNC router. I have, my youngest granddaughter is a huge fan of Bob Marley, so I found a portrait of Bob Marley online and converted that portrait over into a CNC file to V-carve onto a piece of wood. And my oldest granddaughter is a huge fan of the Marvel and DC comic movies, and she really loves the character Harley Quinn, so I bought a scroll saw pattern from Charles Deering and converted that over to a CNC file that I could V-carve into a piece of wood. And I made those for them and gave them to them for their birthdays. My favorite tool or piece of equipment? Well, I'm known primarily for CNC because I've set myself up that way, but it's going to surprise a few folks that I think my favorite tool or piece of equipment would have to be a toss-up between the table saw and the bandsaw. As I said, I came up through the trades working in furniture shops and cabinet shops, and I can't tell you how many sheets of plywood I ripped into parts on a table saw. But there's just something about a well set up, well calibrated, well balanced table saw that just makes using it a pure joy. I mean, the versatility of the tool, people think that it's just for cutting straight lines. It's so much more than that. The jigs and fixtures you can create for it, and the different blades and molding heads, etc., that you can use on a table saw, make it a real versatile piece of equipment. And the same is true with the bandsaw. I mean, everything from resawing rough lumber into something that you can use for a specific project, down to creating really intricate cuts for more artistic designs. It's really hard to beat a good, well-built, well-set-up table saw and a well-set-up bandsaw. It's probably my favorite tools to use. I'd have to say my favorite project that I made is, sounds funny, but I'm sitting on it. This is a chair that I made about 49 or 50 years ago with my grandfather. It was the first project we built together. Now, I've seen these called a Franklin chair, I've seen them called a library chair, but basically in one position it's a chair, and you flip over the back of it, it becomes a step stool. And I was spending the summer with my grandparents, and I wanted to build something, so my grandfather said, well, let's build this chair. And we did. We built it together. Now, I was 7, 8 years old, So he didn't trust me on the table saw or the radial arm saw. I hadn't learned those tools yet. So he made the cuts, but I put it all together. It's very basic construction. I mean, there's probably a pound of nails in it because I just butt jointed everything together and drove in the nails. There's no glue on it at all, but it's lasted 50 years. In this orientation, obviously it's a chair, and you grab hold of the back and tip it forward, and it becomes a two-step step ladder. It's the first thing my grandfather and I built. It's my favorite project. I was real surprised to see that my grandmother still had it. And when she passed earlier this year, that was the thing that I wanted, was this chair. And that's my favorite project I've ever made. My favorite skill I want to learn, I've been a wood guy forever. I would love to get into metal. I'd love to have a small metal lathe, a mini lathe, that I can turn my own custom fasteners if I need to, especially in this day and age. I mean, there's so many projects I want to do where I need a custom metal part, and I don't have the knowledge, the skills, or the ability to make that part. I'd love to be able to come out here and make the part that I need. I'd like to be able to learn to weld and get more into metal work. I've just never had the tools, the teacher, and the space for both of those at the same time. And like right now, I don't have a room. I don't have the room to put a metal lathe if I had one. Hopefully one day, hopefully in the next couple years, I'll build the room for something like that. But I'd love to get into metal work.